Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of SBTDT. I haven't been around in a while and I've been late in sending this video, but I guess after we spoke so long about how to prevent a crash and how to ride on the track safely and avoiding getting on the ground, we are to the hard point where we need to speak about crashing. Crashing is never a happy moment for sure, but it's a reality. It's something that happens despite the fact that we can know all the rules to avoid it. Crashes are part of life. We're humans, we make mistakes, and at the end of the day we go down. In a way or another it happens. So let's talk about crashing. Well, I wish all the crashes could go that way. Unfortunately, they do not. Sometimes if you're lucky, that happens. That's not being a great rider that can fall and stand up like you've just seen on the video. The reality is that when you crash, it's mainly a matter of luck. Once you're down, whatever happens, you have very little control to it. But we have a couple of things that we can do to try to avoid to get too hurt when we go down. But unfortunately, these are things that really you cannot practice that much. I mean, if you have the chance to practice a lot of crashing, maybe you should change sport. So let's keep this in mind. This video is going to be only theory. Let's talk about what you're supposed to do, but let's hope that you never need to do it. First of all, of course, our safety gear is the best friend and we need to rely on them. That's point number one. Point number two, there are two types of crashes. Crash number one, it happens and you don't even realize it. That's the best type because when you realize that you had a crash, it already happened. It's done, finished. That's how it happened to me the first time that I crashed. Someone basically T-boned me during a warm-up lap in Barber, and I just saw gray, I felt a smack, gray, green, then it was grass, done. That was the end of it. At that point I realized that I was down. I didn't have the time to realize that someone crashed into me and took me down. I realized that I crashed after I stopped. My first concern, as usual, is, oh my god, the bike! My bike was brand spanking new. First time on the racetrack, Ducati 848. Not a nice grand opening. The other type of crashes, unfortunately, is when you realize that you are crashing. What happens is that in the split second moment that you start crashing, adrenaline is released into your body. Our brain starts thinking at crazy speed, and as many people said in histories of crashes, they say, oh my god, for a moment I saw everything that was stopped. Well, it's not that everything stops, obviously. What happens is that the brain for a split second can think at a faster speed compared to what it usually does. In the split second you can process all the information you have, and usually the instinct makes you do the wrong thing, which is the most common thing is to tense your body and crash. When you crash with your muscles or tense, eventually you will break some bones. But let's discuss the two types of crashes that there are. One crash is the low side and the other crash is the high side. I think we're all familiar with that, but let's put it in a simpler way. A low side crash is nothing more than a slide. You are down in a corner, you are already on the floor, and you end up sliding because the front tire gave up or you just dropped off the bike, you were not in the proper position, you pick, you do it, you found a patch of sand, you found a bump, whatever it is, something took you down, but you were already on the ground, so you start sliding. What do you do? Let's try to go against the instincts because eventually instinct would like to make you cover your face. Definitely we don't want to do that. We need to rely on our safety gear. How do we rely on the safety gear? Well, the best way to do it is to spread your body out as much as you can and prevent your body from starting to tumble. You are sliding on the ground, you don't want to tumble. If you start tumbling, it's worse than getting beat up by 10 bad dudes, giant, that they want to kick you and punch you all around. You don't want that to happen. You want to prevent the slide. How do you prevent it? Like this. Just open up your body, try to have as much as you can of your body down on the ground, as much leather as you can put on the ground. It's the best. Don't try to stand up during the slide. Don't try to pull yourself up. I had a friend of mine that crashed. He was on the street actually, but a deer cut him off on the road. He hit it with his motorcycle. He was wearing a racing suit. Actually, it was my suit, but that's a different story. What happened was that as he was sliding, officially at 60 miles an hour, as he was sliding, instead of staying down with his body, he pushed himself up on his elbows. Well, the armor on the suit managed to sustain the abrasion, but the heat generated by the friction went through the armor, burned his elbows and his butt cheeks. He had pretty interesting burns both on his elbows and his butt cheeks, and officially was doing 60, but believe it or not, this racing suit that you see beside me, I went down at about 100, 110 miles an hour. That was my very first crash, and this is all there is to it. It's very little, you can barely see what there is in there. Very minor stuff, and you can see the helmet, this little scrape on the face. That's what happens when you crash down with your face down. You can see that there is a big bump on the titanium plate. But the point is that if you don't use your gear the proper way, it cannot save you. In the case of my friend, he pushed himself up on his elbows, so he was sitting up. Now he caused a point of friction in his elbow, a point of friction in his butt, and he got burned. He didn't go through the leather managed to hold the slide, but he still got burned. If he was staying down on his whole body, he would have distributed the slide all over the suit, and he wouldn't have concentrated 2 abrasion points as he did. So let's view a couple of videos where you will see some professional racers as they crash.
No! No! Mannaggia, mannaggia!
Okay, I think you saw what I meant. These guys, as you saw, they spread their arms and legs out, they prevented their bodies from start sliding. Now, this is the sweetest way to crash, to just use your body to slide with, of course, provided you have the proper gear. But let's not forget that in real life, crashes, they don't look as sweet as on video. The video is really nice, it's in slow motion, you have all the time to figure it out. In real life, it's not like that. You need to rely on the split second where your brain thinks really fast and you have to do the action. Because the actual speed of a low side crash, where you take a slide, looks like this.
Mamma mia, che caduta!
Now, this is quite different than what we saw before. It's really terrifying. If you realize the speed that you can go down, how quick you can gain space. I remember that when I went down with my bike, it was 2 seconds. I was here, now I'm 80 yards down the way in the middle of the grass. I didn't see anything basically. I remember only saying great green grass. That was it. That's all I've seen. But in reality, I slid for a good 80 yards down on my side basically. I didn't have the time to realize the crash. Now again, taking a slide, it's one thing. Unfortunately, the other crash that can happen is the high side. The high side really hurts because rather than letting you stay on the ground where you are already, it basically catapults you up in the air and then you fall down in a pretty bad way. In this case, it's really hard to not notice that you've been ejected up in the air, so your body will naturally tend to tense. And that's where you really need to force yourself to go against instincts, and let's face it, it's almost impossible. I've seen some pro drivers managing to do the right thing to do, but it's not easy. First of all, as we said at the beginning, if you don't realize that you're crashing, you don't get hurt. You don't get hurt, well, generally you don't get hurt. You tend to not get hurt because you don't have the time to tense your muscles. But in a HighSide crash, you need to take control of yourself and try to relax yourself. When you're up 5, 7, 8 feet up in the air, once you're falling down, it's pointless to put your arms forward like that, because once you're down, your elbows, they're gonna come out of the suit really quick. It's pointless. You need to rely on all your safety gear. That's what's gonna save you. Your arms, they won't be able to do much. Actually, you don't want to break your arms. Ideally, and again, this is only theory, I never had the chance to practice, fortunately, but ideally what you need to do is to bring your arms to your chest. Just keep them like this so you don't break your arms when you go down. Your arms are protected. If you happen to go down on your chest, your arms will have your chest to protect it. If you happen to go down on your side, your arm is now out like this and getting busted. You need to bring them like this. I know it's hard, it's basically impossible. The other ideal thing that you're supposed to do is to basically relax, or to put, as one of the fellows racers told me, said, just close your eyes and meditate and just wait for your body to just flop on the ground. Great. It's easy to say, it's not easy to do. I'm racing a motorcycle and with my knee on the ground at 100 miles an hour, all of a sudden I'm 7 feet up in the air, and splash down on the ground. Hard to happen, but this is what you're supposed to do.
Grazie.
As you noticed, this guy in the video did exactly what we just said. He had the cold blood to literally bring his arms to his chest, and he let his body fall on the ground freely and let all the protections do their job. He prevented basically obstructing his body to deform as he fell on the ground. If I fall on the ground with my arms like this and my body weight is too big, considering the fall is too big for my arm is gonna bust open. But if when I go on the ground I just let my body bend down, my arm is not gonna break, and at that point all the rest of the suit is gonna do its job. If you can do that, you are amazing. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. This is one of those things that if you manage to do it like the guy in the video you just saw did, kudos. I don't know what to say. You've been great. I hope you didn't get hurt. That would be the best way. The reality is that when you have a high side, you get hurt most of the times, and it's hard for you to keep control of what's happening. But it's always good to know what would be the best thing to do. The reality of the story is that there is nothing that can prevent you from crashing entirely. Like we said earlier, we are human beings. We were created as humans, and as humans we make mistakes. A mistake on the racetrack equals to a crash. The good part is that we can save ourselves with the safety gear and make sure that the crash hurts us the least as possible, and hopefully act in the proper way during the crash to not get hurt. One thing that is sure is that it's not speed that hurts you. Speed technically has never killed anyone. It's when you stop suddenly that you really get hurt. So while you're moving fast, if you crash, you should be able to just take a long slide, and let's hope that nothing stops your slide. You're fine. And as cautious as you can be, as great as you can be doing, crash is always around the corner, or even on your own bike. It can even be a tire blowing up, like it happened to this racer that was at the Mugello, and he was riding 180 miles an hour approximately when a tire blew up. This is what happened.
Porca boia, sul rettilineo a 330 all'ora. Ma cosa gli è successo? Ah, gli è esplosa la gomma, gli è esploso un pneumatico. Quelli probabilmente sono pezzi di pneumatico. Forse.
His helmet did a great job for sure. I mean, he smacked his head 9 times on the asphalt. But the moral of the story is that he was fine after the crash. Yeah, he had a concussion and everything, but he didn't have much of issues to come back on the racetrack 2 weeks later. So this is it. Crashes are part of life. They happen on the racetrack as well as they happen on the street. It's just things that happen. Let's try to prepare ourselves the best way we can to go through a crash by using the proper safety gear. And of course, if we can, if we have enough cold blood, try to act the proper way during the crash. So remember, when you're sliding on the ground, try to spread your body as much as you can. You don't want to start tumbling. If you get thrown up in the air, don't try to stop the fall, because nothing can stop the fall at that point. Just bring your arms to your chest and let the safety gear do their job. And good luck!